What's up, everyone? We are delighted to be here with you all today on this beautiful, brisk autumn day. Wait a second. It's not fall. I don't even know what day of the week it is. Today we're joined by two people whose claim to fame they didn't even realize was all mixed together in this one little book. Did you guys both know that you guys are both in this book at the same time? I mean, that's pretty incredible.
I read it cover to cover, Zack.
Cover to cover. Like, legit cover to cover? Because my dad said he read it cover to cover, and we don't know if that's really true.
I did. I was on the beach in Mexico when I read it.
Even better.
Nice.
So,
it might still be.
I love it. So I'm going to read to you. It's a very quick thing about our guest today, Erica McMannes. I'm going to read her insert of from Anomaly. It's in the chapter. It's on called Applying for Awards. It's award season, page 74 for those of you following along at home. You can also apply to enter competitions. This other company that used to be called something else that we'll get to at another time creates virtual Instant Teams creates virtual jobs for military spouses by connecting them to companies with teams distributed across the country. Instant Teams is owned and operated by military spouses Erica McMannes and Liza Rodewald. Did I get that right for her?
You did. Great job.
Nice. When they were a new business, they were looking for creative and cost-effective ways to get awareness out about their business. Instant Teams has entered a handful of competitions, including South by Southwest, Patriot Boot Camp, Start Peninsula, which they won, and the Innovation Comp. Each of these events and the others that they participated in helped them in numerous positive ways, including cash prizes, growing their network, learning about a situation from someone who's already gone through it, or gaining exposure. Ladies and gentlemen, Erica McMannes.
Thank you. That's like an amazing intro there.
Steal it. Now you have to read Tim's part of the book to introduce Tim.
I don't have the book on me. It's in the room.
Oh, ridiculous. So, we decided to do more of these because I think it's great. And since Erica was chiming in on the last one, thought it would be a good idea to bring her here. So, tell me about why you started the company, and then quickly in there, why you changed the names.
Yeah, that rebrand messes a lot of things up, huh? Especially when you have a book mentioned. I noticed that the other day. I was like, that's not evergreen content when you rebrand.
I know. Sorry.
Yeah, so we started the company originally under the name Mad Skills because we knew that we had to build the brand for the community that we wanted to serve first. We were kind of had the chicken or the egg, right? We were going to need customers. We were going to need a community to believe in us and trust in us. And so we very consciously decided, hey, we've got to build a brand facing the community that we want to serve first. So that's where that kind of launched. But by about year 2.5, we saw kind of that product market fit, and our name wasn't really resonating with customers. And at that point, customers were going to be really important to keep the company going, to bring the jobs in for the community that we had built up. So we went through an accelerator program, and that was kind of our main focus was, what would the rebrand look like? What's the name? What's it going to mean? And it was like a 12-month long process to figure out how we were going to rebrand, what we were going to do, and then like an 8-week rollout. So it was like a executable steps to rebrand to be sure we didn't like lose anything along the way.
And you got into remote work because of being a spouse of the military, where you moved, I wrote it down somewhere, 11 times in 18 years. Right. Yeah. And that's something that I didn't realize about until I had you on the podcast, 3 or 4 years ago, when Lindsay Germono had brought us together. I mean, this is crazy how quickly you guys have to move all the time.
Yeah, I mean, that's the cadence. We're an Army family, so Army families definitely move usually more than some of the other branches. But yeah, 11 times in 18 years, and after 3 moves in 3 years, I was like, okay, a normal traditional career is going to be really hard. Like, what else can I do? Like, how is this going to work? I want to have a career. I want to have my own identity, but it was a really big struggle. So I just kind of ended up consulting first for about 5 years, but did that remotely. And that's kind of when I realized, hey, there's like this whole model of people who need talent and talent that need jobs. Like, how can we make this work? So that's kind of the kickoff of what now is Instant Teams.
Tim, feel free to chime in with questions whenever you want. But you just said something that was articulated very, very clearly. People need jobs and people need, what was that line?
Customers need talent and talent needs jobs.
How long did it take for you to figure out that wording there? Because it seemed like, obviously I didn't remember it very well because I'm an idiot. But like that was very, like, it just rolled off the tongue. Like, is that something that you worked on like crazy?
Yeah, it's funny. Those small words make all the difference. Like, we've used different words like community, workforce, talent, candidates, remote workers. Like, we've used all of those things and we've just had to keep iterating until it makes sense to who it needs to make sense to. So customers are always customers. People are like, why don't you say clients? Well, we're not consultants. Like, we see ourselves like SaaS, HR tech, like big business. So we have customers. Like, that was like a very substantial decision, like, for our whole team. We will now call our people who work with us customers. And then same on the talent side, we still say talent, but we've also kind of started to work, not call them the community so much, but like a workforce, because that makes more sense kind of in just industry and really current terms too.
I think a ton of people undervalue that, right? They want to use the brand, the industry specific sexy word, and not the word that their actual customer base uses, right? And so, and sometimes you actually have multiple sides of a marketplace. It's not really a marketplace, but you have, the people that you're talking to in the industry that you want to speak in their vernacular. And then there's the other side, or the people who actually pay your bills. Then you gotta speak differently to them, and then maybe even have different subsets in there. So I think that's really important. And I think a lot of people don't do that enough, and they really should.
Yep. Yeah, it's a constant learning process too. Like, just listening, like, listen to see what's not making sense versus just throwing it out there. And that's made a huge difference. But it's taken a while, and I'm sure there's things, especially now with what's happening with COVID and everything, like, again, words matter, and different words are going to mean more or less now in the current time. So we're even making little pivots to kind of address that too.
So how has COVID changed your business since everything happened?
Yeah, it's really interesting, and we're in a very unique position in that we've always been remote. So that part is not new to us as a team. We've had to make some adjustments in helping team members. There's a whole new layer of, we were just talking, we've got kids home, and if you're an active duty spouse, a lot of our spouses are still working, right? They're not home. They're mission essential, so they're still out working. So we've had to make some adjustments just to support kind of the productivity and the scheduling of team members. But business-wise, it's been really interesting, everywhere from people we talked to 6 months ago who are like, oh, now I understand why having a remote wing of the company or having a backup plan, like, it becomes risk mitigation almost. And so it's been really interesting. And we've had an uptick and we've had some loss because it's affecting small businesses who we have some as customers. So it's kind of been a toss-up right now. Like, I think the next 30, 60 days will really show how we're going to survive through this. But thankful to date that we still have customers. Everybody's still strong, so doing well right now.
You used the word early on about the book, how you guys are written in the book, and how the name change obviously is not evergreen, and you guys have been on a ton of podcasts, and there's that change in there. The same, I think, can be said with a pandemic or anything like this, where the things that you talk about should maybe be more evergreen than not, so that you can find them. Do you have a strategy in place on trying to improve those words from before to switch back over? And then also, like, what are you saying now around COVID, coronavirus, that maybe you're second guessing so that it could be more disaster or emergency based, so that someone 6 months from now can do it and look at it?
Right. Yeah. I mean, the foundation of our company has always been remote, so we don't really have any loss of affinity there. It's been fun to see all of our old content that we just wrote, because what we do naturally now has relevancy and it's naturally evergreen state. So that has been kind of cool. Like, hey, just pull out our past 10 blogs about remote work because they matter now to more people. But I think you guys talked about it on your last thing, there's also an opportunity at hand. So, our message is already strong in the remote workspace, but now it really matters, and people need it, right? It's like a survival thing. So staying true to the words and the verbiage that we use, but just kind of maneuvering that messaging target a little bit so that people, oh, I need that. So like we've pulled out our productivity tool from our software to talk about that more specifically versus just, hey, you need a remote team. Well, everybody's working remotely right now, so that's not special, right? Like it doesn't make people like, oh, that's interesting. So the things like people are struggling with productivity. How do I manage my team? How do I see what they're doing? If you don't have those things in place, then all of a sudden you're like, well, how do I know people are working if I can't see them working? Which those of us who work remotely know that there's certain ways to do that. So it's just I'm pulling the little things out that we do, kind of niche down that may be a little bit different, and pushing those out there a little bit more.
So productivity in the workforce for a remote worker would be the normal thing, but now you just add this little asterisk that says during coronavirus. Right. Is that how you pull that side in?
Yeah, and it's also like speaking to it, like, hey, have you had to move a workforce? If you're a manager or a leader of a department and you don't know how to see the productivity of your team, like we've got something that can help you with that. We've been doing this for 3 years. So it's kind of that, hey, we've got your back, like let us help you, here's what we can do.
What do you think the biggest people leaders of virtual teams are missing? What's that you've seen on your end?
Very, very honestly, it's communication and caring about your team. If you don't have relationships that are thriving with the people you're working with and a crisis happens, that's not the time to all of a sudden want to build trust and want to have people working cohesively and have communication and understanding. And I've seen that firsthand with, companies that may have been a little volatile in team structure before are no longer because nobody had any heart in it to make it work. So it's kind of it's crisis, but it's those things that you did before the crisis that will get you through the crisis. So that's been really interesting just to see those communication, kind of things fall through. All of a sudden you realize, oh, maybe, being in an office doesn't automatically make us a great team and we don't all communicate or trust each other. Like that's not just a given.
That's interesting. You said something that I think is very, very interesting, and it's around kind of credibility, where you said we've been doing this for 3 years, right? And you have a lot of people out there that are capitalizing on an opportunity right now to jump on this stuff who haven't been doing any of that. So where do you show your credibility and where do you kind of back off on that so a business can say, so for example, like I've seen a lot of people say, oh, let me show you how to do an online event, and they've never done an online event, right? And so I'm watching all this and I'm like, this is really interesting. So and these people like have done none or one or two. And I'm like, well, I've done like 1,000 of these things. Like I can show a ton of value to people. Maybe there is something here for people to learn from. And so one of the things I say why you should listen to me, I'm like, well, I've hosted 1,000 events over the last decade, so I know what I'm talking about, right? And so how do you sell that credibility so that someone can trust you when they might be learning about you for the first time, whether that's right now or at a later time or from before?
Yeah. It's a noisy space for remote work right now, right? So everybody's suddenly an expert. Everybody has the resources you need. So it's kind of like the flip side to like we're uniquely positioned to thrive. Well, I see things on LinkedIn and I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? That's not what you do. Like, but again, people are taking advantage of it and they're being smart with business strategies. So like I respect and I understand what people
We'll see
doing.
How long those people really last for too, right? I mean,
Right.
Where are those people in 3 months? That's another thing that's like, come on, guys.
Right. Yeah. It's been interesting in the remote work community, right? It's kind of a subset of any business industry. The hashtag remote first has been being used. Like we were like OG remote, right? Like we were remote before remote was cool. So it's kind of like a subtle, like, hey, we were here, and through the thick and thin before all of this happened. So yeah, I mean, it's noisy, but there's really no need to shout above the noise. I mean, if you have a brand, right, like that's what speaks for it. You have the historical reference on your site, you have the blogs, you've got customer stories. It just kind of makes all the difference that, it's noisy, but if you've been there and you are an expert at it, like that usually shines through in the end.
What's the three most productive tools, or if there's more, name more, but what are the tools that you all use that you recommend others to use to be the most productive as possible?
Yeah, so there's productivity tools and there's communication tools and so there's all kinds of things. I'll speak to the communication part because that's just kind of that's where I focus, like the care of everybody, right? Like that's where I spend a lot of my time in my role. And things like Slack make all the difference. Like, don't be communicating with 20 coworkers through an email chain, please. Don't be using private group text chats on your phones. Like, those are not like the way to like be communicating and checking in on people. So if you never used Slack before, like I would definitely recommend Slack because you can organize it. Like we have department channels, we have lunch table channels, we have community channels, we have a mental health channel. Like we have all of these things that are kind of replicating like what a workplace environment would be like. And that makes all the difference because then people have specifics. They know where to go and who to talk to and how to get that done. And then we use Trello a lot. There's different ones, Basecamp, Asana.
We just started using that. It's great.
Yeah, lots of different types of productivity tools. I personally love Trello because I feel like it's Post-it notes. You can just kind of drag and drop them and reorganize them. But we've spent some time just in the past 3 weeks even making new like time blocking charts for team members who are needing a little bit more structure with their day. So it's kind of like just a workflow. If you've got like kids and the schoolwork you're trying to figure out and your workflow and all of these things, it's just like a nice little place so they can come and focus and be like, I have 6 hours today. Here's my duties. Here's my tasks. And now I can kind of move it through a process.
Awesome.
Well, that's 2.
So one more?
I don't know. I mean, you can do whatever you want. What I hear out of that is some sort of communication tool,
yep,
right? That has historical reference out of there. That's a Slack, right?
Yep.
And then I hear some sort of productivity tool where people can see Slack and those things could probably be categorized under the same thing to some people.
Yeah.
But you're using them as different things.
Yeah, Slack is kind of like if you were all in an office together and you were like opening doors and talking to people and shutting doors and walking to the next office, like in your daily workflow, we kind of like visualize Slack as like our office space. Like, all right, walk into the next room, checking in on people here. Whereas Trello is kind of your, I don't know, like the boardroom with the strategy on the wall, right? Like, this is what you're doing today. This is the goal of the company. So we use it in those ways. And I guess since you said 3, I love Zoom. I know, Zack, you and I kind of had an exchange over Skype versus Zoom, but it is what it is. That's really important when you work remotely. Like, you've got to have FaceTime with people. And so getting on camera and having meetings, even if they're quick, just daily syncs, can make all the difference. You've got people who feel disconnected easily. You have, there's a lot of verbal cues and body language and all those types of things that are really, really important.
Okay, for the record, I am not against Zoom in the way that you're saying it. Obviously, I have to use Zoom all the time. The challenge is that when I started doing all this stuff a long time ago, Ecamm was the tool that was available that did all the things that I wanted. And so I've been loyal to that brand. And maybe at some point it changes, right? Maybe I have to change. Who knows? But at the time, what I wanted Zoom to do from a recording of a podcast perspective, it didn't do. I wanted it to pull individual audio clips so that it wasn't one. So like if this call was here, the tool will edit it as 3 different audio clips. Before, Zoom didn't do that. It would be 1 clip.
Got it.
So whatever, be mad at me for my 2013 historical reference. Guys, thanks for listening right now. We're talking with Erica McMannes of Instant Teams. I'm Zack Miller. That's Tim Ryan somewhere on this thing, and Erica McMannes is somewhere over there. We're talking about mastering the art of remote teams, workings, thingamajigs, whatever. We've loosely talked about kind of video streams and stuff like that. How does one network? Say that loosely, where generally people think about networking as you go to a networking event or a physical event. How does someone network when they can't network?
Yeah, I noticed at least once or twice a week I've been joining like other people are hosting webinars all the time now, right? Like, it's the only way they can do it. So my strategy has kind of been like just show up to one whether I know anybody or not. They're usually on Zoom. I'd say like 60% of people know how to run Zoom and some don't. So sometimes there's a lot of a lot of big group access and noise and crazy things happening. But what I'll do is I'll pay attention to people talking or offering advice or asking questions, and their name is there, and then I'll go to LinkedIn and connect with them, and I'll be like, "Hey, saw you on the Zoom. Like, great to meet you. You want to? Here's my Calendly link." So that's how I've kind of just recreated the opportunity to keep building my network and meeting people through all of this. I'm not a huge event in person kind of person. I kind of like remote work as an introvert and everything. So I'm like, oh, this is a new way as an introvert. I can start networking in my comfort of my own home. So yeah, got to find where there's a will, there's a way, right? Like we can't stop. So got to kind of recreate the wheel.
The hashtag Just Say Hey movement continues where, you know, you meet someone, you see someone there and you have to go and take it to that next step, right? I think it's so important that you do it that way. That's what I would have said, right? Is get on some sort of like mass call, figure out who's on there, and then take it to the DMs, slide it to the DMs, right? Like the cool kids say, and figure out how that conversation can go from there. So when you, what is the first words that you say to that person? The next, like, hey, it's Erica. We're on this call together. Will you be my BFF? Or like, what do you say?
I usually just say, hey, saw you on the Zoom call with so-and-so, like, would love to connect. Let me know if you need anything. And it depends on like what the topic is. If it's like I've done some like PPP COVID relief type webinars where we're all kind of in it together and figuring it out. I've done remote work type things where I can just reach out and say, hey, fellow remote worker here. So, you know, we've been able to kind of pick that up and just figure out different ways to still broaden the network while we're all home.
What I want to go back to another top 3 list. You can pick the number, but what are the biggest ways that people are thinking that they are productive, but they are actually not doing anything productive at all?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think one is the butts in seats over like deliverables, and that's why our remote teams have been successful, is because you have to have a process so that people can show the work that they've done. Otherwise, you know, you can sit down at a computer and 8 hours can go by and you can be like, crap, what did I actually do today? Taking that remotely shows those gaps very, very easily, because especially when your entire team is remote. So we're like a core team of 20 right now. So if somebody's not doing their piece of the process, then that's holding up a whole nother department from doing their piece. And that backup shows up very, very fast. So I think if you don't have process in place as the leader or the department head of something, you're missing out on holding people accountable for the productivity. So I think that would be one kind of from like the leadership department head type standpoint.
Can we go deeper into that a little bit? So like what does a process look like? So I could say, hey, I worked on this logo today and that's it. Like, or is there something very, very specific from that? Because it seems like something that could be very like cheated very quickly, which still doesn't fix the leader not believing you did work type of thing. Like what, drill deeper into that process.
Yeah, so I think that's where like your KPIs and your metrics, we'll go like deep business here. Like, what is the expectation of the role? Is it, hey, you did 1 logo a day, excellent, with sticker, you know, pat on the back, you did your job? Or is it, you know, you've got 22 clients who all need design strategy sessions and deliverables, and you know, you've moved 3 of them through phase 2 and 4 of them have closed. Like, it's those process kind of KPIs and gateways, and we have a very kind of complex system of how we bring customers in, how we create the teams, how we onboard the teams, how the teams then work actively under our management. So those, in my experience, like if you don't have all those things in place, like you're not going to get to the end. I think it's probably different if you're a freelancer or a solopreneur and you just have your own handful of clients. But again, if you don't have a process set up, you're going to get to Friday and be like, I don't actually know if I did anything for anybody this week. Like, did I just talk? Did I just think I did business? So those KPIs, it's those metrics, it's like a visible, almost tangible, although I know that sounds funny because we're all working remotely, but like a process that, you know, if I finished and I started here, then I have been productive along the way. So is that 2?
I think that was 1 with a deep dive.
That was a long one. You're right. You took me down the rabbit hole. Okay, so
why's it got to be a rabbit? Like, Well,
A snake hole? I don't know. What kind of holes are we going to
I don't know. If you're watching the movie It was a clown hole.
That's a bad day. I don't need those kinds of holes having it. There's enough black holes out there in the business space right now. We don't need to be chasing any red balloons. Another one I think is talking. Some people can think they're being productive by just talking to people, which that has a time and a place, right? Especially if you are checking in on people and you're caring for people like a time like this. But it's kind of like that meeting overload. Like you weren't productive just because you had 22 meetings this week. And I've had, what? Anyway, I've had to learn that and kind of learn how to safeguard my time, right? It's that balance of networking and meeting new people versus, hey, I have to get heads down. Like we've got a lot of stuff going on and I need to actually focus and get things finished. So kind of the unneeded communication. And my biggest one is waste of meeting times. Like if you have 7 1-hour meetings in a week, do you really need all of those or did you just need one?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's a one also like where meetings could have been emails, right? I call those email meetings. It's like, come on, people. And like, I think people would respect people more if they were just like, hey, there's no reason to meet. Here's the update. There is no update, right? And in a situation to relate this to right now, it's like if someone has something that they want to tell the world, let's just say it's a restaurant, right? And there's an update from that and your hours have changed, then update that meeting or update stuff and say, hey, our hours have changed. This is what it is. Otherwise, there's no need for communication because I think people are just like, why are you wasting my time? And that can be tough. We're here with Erica McMannes of Instant Teams. You guys can check them out at instantteams.com. I'm Zack Miller. That's Tim Ryan. I want to thank all of you guys for watching so far. Katie Wright says, it's funny how I rarely communicate with team members through email now that we have Slack. Brianna George says she loves Slack. Whitney Duena says, hey guys, with 17 exclamation points. So if you guys have questions for any of us, feel free to ask away in the L comments. So you guys have raised, you guys have actually done a really interesting job of going through all facets of kind of the business world. So you guys started as kind of a 2-person team, you and Liza, right?
Yep.
And then now have raised over 7 figures in venture funding, have a completely remote team of 20 plus people, I believe the number is. Like, how have you, from a founder perspective, like managed all of that from an emotional standpoint?
It's been a lot of personal growth. There have been life coaches involved, right? Like I have invested my own time and energy into growing who Erica is as a person and a founder. We all have mental barriers and stuff that if you don't learn how to work through those, like you're not going to be a cognizant leader. You're not going to be able to step out of your comfort zone. I'm an introvert, so I like to be behind the scenes. I prefer to be like, making the process work and helping the people do the work. And I've had to learn how to step out of that. Like you can't be a founder and be 100% behind the scenes. Like there's a time and a place where you've got to be out front leading and talking about what you're doing, like we're doing right now. So that's been probably a big part of it, is just investing my own time and resources into building who I am. Having an amazing co-founder I think makes all the difference. I've been doing this long enough. I've seen solo founders struggle, right? You've got to have a counterpart. And I know not everybody has that commodity. But that's been a huge help. Like Liza and I totally balance each other out. If she's having a bad day, then I know I have to buck up and be the positive one. If I'm having a down day, then she takes that spot. So being able to balance that between a business partner is huge. There's so much weight to carry, and most people outside of you as founders don't get that whole picture, and they shouldn't, right? Like nobody on your team should really know the whole picture of all of the stress, because they have their own stress in their position that they need to be worrying about to make them successful in their department and to make the department successful, while balancing that with transparency, right? Like we don't hide anything, but we're also not like sitting there for an hour-long meeting talking about all the stressful things that we're doing. So,
well, that's from a context standpoint too, where I think not everyone not everyone gets it, right? Let's just say that like you get a $10,000 deal, right, or $100,000 deal, right? To the naked eye, someone's like, oh my god. And if someone, let's say one singular person is working on that project, right, and like I'm only making $50,000, and the project brings in 100, and they're thinking, well, I'm not getting paid enough. The whole context isn't there, and they don't understand that in that specific kind of case. And I think oftentimes the context of that situation in many different scenarios isn't always there, and it doesn't need to be there, right? The key is that you're there to do the gig and to get it done and as best as possible. So, like, what do you guys decide to talk about, and then not from a context perspective around kind of the stuff you're talking about?
I mean, we're pretty open with everything. We're open about the fundraising. We're open about sales and deals coming in. I think it's just the emotional part that I think we safeguard a little bit. Like, if I've had a bad day, I'm not going to get on a team call on a Friday and be like, this week was crap. Like, this has just been stressful, right? Like, that negativity does nothing for anybody. So, I will usually process that on my own, or, have a session with life coach or Liza or somebody to like, hey, I just have to vent for a minute, because we all have to do that. Like, you have to have an outlet. And that those two things together kind of keep me in check with where I need to be emotionally, physically, self-care. I think the first time, Zach, you interviewed me, I was like, yeah, I'm working like 18-hour days. And you're like, when do you sleep? And I was like, no, I don't need to sleep. I got this. And then like the next year was like the near burnout phase, where you start to like see yourself doing weird things and having like weird thoughts, and you're like, what is happening? You're like, oh, sleep is so important. So I've kind of done that full circle of like super energetic, like gonna crank this thing out, which has its time and place in every phase, to like, oh, I'm not going to make it. Like, this is not a healthy Erica. I need to really like pay attention to myself, and then learning how to balance that out along the way.
Well, it's funny you say that, because Tim obviously has run for like 2,000, not obviously, people who don't know that. Tim Ryan, the guy with the earbuds and the amazing hair, and his 17 straight years of best hair in Hampton Roads. He, I think, for one of the things that you're talking about from an emotional standpoint, started running and has run for 2,000 plus days, at least 2 miles a day. And so wow. I think that's something that's really helped him from a business perspective too, is he has this coping mechanism for 30 to 60 minutes a day minimum, and it helps in there. And I don't think people grasp the concept of how physical activity can really help in this, how that mental stability can really help in this. Tim?
Yeah. No, I agree. And one, it's my outlet. It allows, every morning I'm out there and I can mentally get prepared for whatever that day has in store. But the other thing that we haven't really had a chance to dive deeper into this is that the whole art of running, it's the same repetitive, monotonous thing every single day. So a lot of times when founders will come to me and ask me for help or to mentor them or whatever the case is, I'll ask them what their hobbies are, or if they're a runner, then that's something that is of interest of me, because if you have the self-discipline to train for a marathon and go day in and day out for 3 or 4 months to run 26.2 miles on a day-to-day basis, it's very monotonous and it is so repetitive. And do you have that discipline to do those little things day after day after day with the end goal in mind? And you'll find a lot of people, they don't have what it takes, and it requires a ton of discipline. But one question I have for you, Erica, is so you said you're the OG in remote working. So if do you find yourself, if somebody approached you and said, "Hey, we really need help right now. We're in this situation where we have to work remote. We have no idea how to set our teams up." Is that something that you would be willing to pivot towards, or would you just you have to stay true to what your business is, and then point them to a different direction? What would you do?
Yeah, no, I've kind of taken that on personally. Like, I've had calls with people just to say, hey, here's how you set up a Trello time block screen. Like those actual like steps that you can take to set that up. I mean, I think that's a part of the giving back when you are an expert at something and you've built something and you know how to do something. there's a time and a place. Like now's not the time and the place to be like, this is an $8,000 consultancy package to help you get your remote team going, right? Like that's not what we're gonna do. Our business model is there. If people need to plug into it to, build a team, get a team going. We've done that a couple times with like customer support type roles in the past several weeks. But if it's just somebody who's like, I just need help figuring out what this is, willing to give time and, advice to help get that set up. But what we did do to kind of mesh those two together is a part of our customer dashboard in the software that we built is a productivity tool. So you can see the team that you've built with us, when they're working, the budget line, who the team members are. So we've kind of pulled that piece out for free. So if somebody just wants to tap into it, just to have like a visual, like I just want to see what my 10 people are doing, how many hours they work today. We've set some people up with just access to that, like just to have kind of an interim way to see. There's no communication or anything to it. It's just kind of like a department head or leader visual of, okay, team's working. They've worked their number of hours. They've built this much budget wise. Kind of trying to maneuver to that to kind of fit what people need while staying true to the business.
So do you have an $8,000 remote package like that you were explaining? You don't. Okay.
No.
So
if somebody wants, I'll make one up.
I was gonna get at like, where is that line though, right? Like when do you decide that you're talking with someone and it's like, or you're giving a webinar or something like, and maybe they're in it for a cheap amount or not the full amount, or maybe it's free. When do you decide to actually then capitalize on that and be like, yo, like it's time that you give us money? Because I think too many people right now are actually thinking too much on the negative side of this this isn't an opportunity to capitalize from a business, not from like a donkey kind of perspective, but like you're still a business, you still have to make money. Like where is that line where you're like, okay, it's okay in this time to ask for money or to put out a proposal? Because I mean, you still go to the grocery store and you're paying them money, right? So it's not like people aren't spending money. Your cable bill, maybe cable's a bad idea. Your internet bill is still coming through. Many of us still have to pay mortgages and things like that, right? I haven't seen that one go away yet, but like where's that line where it's okay to sell?
Yeah. And I kind of pull that apart, like me as Erica and the company is Instant Teams, right? So like I'll do like a 30-minute to a 45-minute, like, hey, like, let me give you some tips. This is what we've done. This is our mindful communication policy. Like we've shared things that we've created internally with like one-on-one type calls just to give that value. Because that's the other part of the story, right? It's crisis, but you're also building relationships. If you're able to help somebody make it through, they might become the full version of the customer that the business model actually serves in the future. So there's always kind of like the long-term versus just, do you have the time to offer this? From the business side, we really haven't done that, like kind of formulated or handed ourselves out like in a consultancy type way. If somebody came to us and was like, hey, I've got this huge department, I've never done this before, we want you to put on 4 webinars, we would probably put a price point to that, right? Like that is taking away from what we're also struggling with to keep a business running and bringing in new business and customers too. So I think there's kind of be a case-by-case situation depending on kind of the scope of who was needing what in that kind of advice realm.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it sounds, and you have to stick to whatever your bread and butter is. But I mean, to me, knowing you for the last 3 years and knowing how you operate, it seems like you have that procedure down, and to the point where it's fairly scalable. That there would be pretty quick to package something like that up and then just add that as an additional revenue stream to people wanted to. It's a need. It's a problem that people have right now that they have no idea how to be productive in this new normal.
Yep. I love to talk about it, so we can help people and scope that out however we need.
Can we play a game?
Oh no! Now the introvert in me is really worried, but okay.
Okay, let's play a game. No, it's an easy game. When you meet someone for the first time, what's the first question that you ask them? What's your favorite go-to icebreaker question?
Okay, this is the Enneagram 5 in me. What kind of environment are we in? Are we in a networking event?
Oh my goodness! This is a question for you, not to spin it back to Tim or me. Come on. I don't know, if you meet someone in a business setting online. So actually, let's talk about that call. Like, you see someone on a PP, on a COVID call, on a triple P conference call, and then you say hello to them. Like, what's your icebreaker question in that?
Yeah, right now, like, hey, how you doing? Like, no, really, how you doing, right? Like, that's kind of been like the funny thing. Like, you're always like, hey, how's it going? Like, no, really, how's it going?
So is it with slang where you're like, how you doing?
Yeah. That's really important, and that's kind of more of my natural. Like, I love the business, but I do like to have, even if it's a 5-minute relationship, like some kind of basis of commonality with people. So I usually ask something about, like, what brings you here? Like, are you here for this session or this session? Like, just to have something before, we even start talking about our own businesses. So it's usually more of a personal question. My favorite, especially because it's me, is if we're in a real environment, right? Real, not virtual. Finding the person that's like hanging out in the corner or not engaging with the rest of the room, because I automatically know they're uncomfortable. So I will go and be like, oh, so, like, I bet you're sitting here because you're like, you have no idea who to talk to. So I've learned, like, and that's been a life coaching thing, like how to help bring other people out of the corner. Because that's naturally, like, I want to be the wallflower. I love observing. I love human behavior. Like, that's my comfort place. So I kind of like to bring those people up too.
And then obviously, how you doing? I get it. Cool.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if this is a 100% factual statement as I'm saying this, but I believe it to be true. And we'll say it this with the Tim Ryan top 3, because he's all about the rule of threes today. I believe that your pitch at Start Peninsula was one of the best pitches I've ever seen. And I was a judge during that event. It's a build a company in a weekend competition. And it was like, it was very easy to pick you as the winner. Your pitch was articulate. Like, what is your go-to strategy when presenting on a stage where there's a performance, or when you're raising capital? Because I think all too often people are asking that question, how do I raise money? And sometimes people just fall in love with people in their pitch where they're like, wow, that was good. Like, and it's remarkably different. Right? Like, there are people there that are just garbage, right? They're just like, that's a harsh word, but they're not as good. And then you see you and you're just like, yep, she's going to win. Like, you knew it immediately. And I think Tim would probably agree. He wasn't a judge, but like, you could watch it and you see it, right? And the nail gun guys 2 years ago, what was their name? Handy something, Tim? Safety Nailer. They were on Shark Tank recently. Like, yeah. You just know it sometimes, right? So like, how do you get good at that? What's your go-to pitch?
We've done lots of different pitches, right? So it's the pitch competitions, like to get grant money, like that's different than fundraising. We have like 32 different pitch decks right now, right? I think that's part of your equation to your question is, who is your audience? Like, you can't take, like, if I had taken the same pitch deck that I won that competition with to a VC investor, like, we would have gotten nowhere, right? Like, you have to know what your audience is looking for. And knowing how to keep, your business model is the same, your core values are the same, your service is the same, but how do you tell a different story to who you're actually talking to? And I will take maybe 1% of any credit for the fundraising that we've done on the VC side, because Liza as CEO has totally taken that over. And she is remarkable. I don't think we've had anybody say a hard no because I don't want to. If there's been a no, it's been, not the right time. We don't invest in that type of thing. Like the no's that you're like, okay, I still did a good job. That no was meant to be a no.
Do you deep dive on that no? So like, I remember one of the questions I asked Damon John when I interviewed him. I said, what do you do when you get a no in business? And he goes, well, a no is an absolute maybe. I have to deep dive into figuring out why that no was a no. So, and I think this is where a lot of people quit too, where they hear their no and they're like, oh, I'm so sad. Like, are you deep diving when that happens to figure out why they're saying no? Or are you just like, whatever, and what they told me I'm believing?
Yeah, no, I think there's a total opportunity there. There's like several reasons for no, right? No, they just weren't interested, which is fine. Like, not everybody is going to be interested in what you have to say. There's a no because something fundamentally you missed in the pitch, or you didn't answer the question the way they wanted you to, and that's just a learning opportunity. Like, they won't always give you feedback, but again, depending on the type of pitch, you can say, hey, what was the no for? Like, thank you for your time. Do you have any pointers for me? And I think that's the biggest one is the ego can't exist in those situations. Like you can't take it personally because there's so much opportunity to learn and do better and make the next one a yes. If you take no's or feedback personally, like you're almost just going to wreck your own train before you can get any further. And I've seen that happen even in some of the things I've done with you all here in the peninsula areas. You can see some people's like defensiveness before they've even started or gotten questions, and like you're just like, no, learn, take the opportunity. Like this isn't about you, although it's all about you. Like you just, I think. That's
but I have the next best thing, and I'm going to be great. Well, then you should listen because all these people can jump on board with you. But if they think you're a donkey, they're not going to want to like you. Like I don't.
To back it up. To back it up just a little bit further, you said that you had 32 different pitch decks, and the thing is that you all are willing to put in the work, and that's also a big differentiator between you and everyone else. And one of the big phrases that we say in our house is that you can't take the elevator to the top; you have to take the stairs. And by doing 32 pitch decks, you're taking the stairs to the top. So credit to you, and that's a big reason that you have the success that you have.
Yep. Yeah, the steps are what it's all about. Like you can't skip steps. And when you do, even inadvertently, you'll know very quickly, like, oh, okay, we went from here to here. We probably need to go back and build a couple steps before we can be really solid here.
Well, you learn so much during that, right? I think that's what you're saying is like, I mean, and to get back for the fitness stuff, like you learn so much running for all that time. Like think about from a cooking perspective, you learn so much by making a dish that had too much salt in it or whatever it might be. In a business, like if you just constantly win and don't have anything to learn from, when it does happen 10 years later, when you lose, you're like, whoa, I don't know what to do. And so I think businesses should be looking for these challenges. They should be looking for these no's because they can learn so much from them. And it's super valuable. And I love the feedback that you gave where it's like, hey, like you're here to learn. You're here to like understand what's going on. Like grasp that and enjoy that ride.
Yeah. Yeah, I had it was interesting. So it was a pinch competition. It's the first one I did. It kind of helped me take the steps, right? The steps up to get to you guys. So it was the first one. Then I had won one in August, and then I won one with you guys that November. But the first one was kind of a hot seat where we were at an event and you just had to say, yep, I'll do it. No preparation, nothing. And I knew I had to do it, although it was like hives and sweaty and like freezing heavy, like I wanted to run away. And I did it. I didn't do great, but the woman that was giving the feedback, like if you can have, she's the kind of person, like if you could have 15 minutes of her time, you are going to learn, right? You're going to learn about yourself. You're going to learn how to improve your pitch. And so I knew like I couldn't miss out on that opportunity. Like she was somebody that I wanted that 15 minutes of attention from. But I saw somebody else take it the completely wrong way. And that has always stuck out in my mind because she did her pitch. She didn't do great. She got the feedback and she said to the woman, can you get up here and do better? And I was like, oh man. And so that woman, she got up there. She's like, give me a product. And so somebody just threw out a product and she just delivered like this, like 3-minute long, eloquent speech, business model, on the fly like that. And I just thought, why would you put yourself in that situation to get feedback from somebody who has been, is an expert and then not take it? Like that is a huge loss. That's like just can be catastrophic. That could be a pivotal moment for you. So ego, man, ego will get you every time.
That's right.
I love losing. It's fun. It's it's a journey. I mean, I really do. Like I love a challenge. And I think this actually comes all together. Like I did a marathon with Tim. By that I mean we were both in the same race. Tim ran very fast. I did not. But it was interesting as I was like reflecting back the week, like a couple days before. I was like, I'm really looking forward to this challenge because I want to hit that like wall of suck and I want to know what it's like to get through it. And so I do things from a physical perspective so that in business things I can feel it in the business world and I can relate and correlate those things together. And it's so powerful. And I did hit it and it happened right around kind of where Tim said it was going to happen too, which is kind of interesting. But it was like, if you can push through this thing, then you'll be able to finish basically. And that's the case. The same thing goes like practice things in good times so that when things are bad, you're prepared for them. Right? Yeah. And so in a time like this where many are negative, they're very mopey, they're not very positive, had they been practicing going through challenges and meeting a bunch of people and practicing positivity, it would have made, in my opinion, all of this stuff far easier than not, right? And I love challenges, and I think it's a very powerful thing, and I think more people need to implement them into their lives. Like, do things that are uncomfortable because they make the comfortable a lot easier. I don't know if I said that right, but I think you guys get my point. And also, congrats to Tim for one day being able to, at some point, run the Boston Marathon.
I've only done half marathons, so that's plenty for me. I always remember I've done like 4 or 5 of them. When you turn the corner to where all the full marathoners keep going, and I'm like, oh, Lord bless them. I'm done. I've finished my half.
The race we did, they started halfway at the beginning. So we started 13 miles prior. Yeah. Wild world.
Yeah.
Katie says, great advice on how to handle a no. Thank you for that. Katie also enjoys hiking, Zumba, and cooking something new is always a brain break for her. What's up, Will, Brian, Tony, and others who I'm not seeing the comments immediately because it's been shared too many times. Let's play another game. So what is your elevator pitch, since we're talking about elevators? Both of you, I want to hear your elevator pitch.
Sure. Context. Am I pitching to an investor or?
You're pitching to the crowd that is watching this right now on Facebook that you have no idea who it is.
Cool. So
probably not an investor in that kind of case. Just a general community to a commercial that's watching Wheel of Fortune.
Okay. So remember, we got the 32 pitch decks. So I'm like, which deck am I bringing out here in my brain? So thank you for the time for learning a little bit more about Instant Teams. And what we really do every day at Instant Teams is we build and manage remote teams for companies across the nation. So we do that by focusing on their needs in either customer support, admin, or marketing. And we're able to see their need, fill their need, and deliver the team back to them within 5 days. So it really sets us apart in being able to bring and deliver the different types of team scaling and talent opportunities that a lot of people just aren't ready to do internally, especially in a time of crisis like this. We're really positioned well to help those companies thrive and succeed.
All right. If people are so Tim, you're next. I'll give you like 20 more seconds to get ready. So if people are interested in learning about you, obviously on the screen you have instantteams.com up there this entire time. Is there a better place to find you? Is there a specific page that you'd like people to go to? Where can people that are interested in jumping on board with that, what you just said, where should they go?
Yeah, instantteams.com is excellent. And if you want to connect with me personally, I love LinkedIn. So it's just, you can put my name in, Erica McMannes, and you should be able to find me there. So send me a connection request and happy to chat and connect.
And Mr. Tim Ryan, tell me about what you got going on.
Well, no, I appreciate that opportunity, Zach. Since you said that we've been shared so many times, there's probably a lot of people that have no idea what Startwheel even is. So Startwheel is an organization to better consolidate, coordinate, and celebrate entrepreneurship across Hampton roads. Going back a few years ago, it wasn't as active in the community as it is today. And now, with so many different localities, universities, and resources out there, all of which are trying to do their part to help move the entrepreneurial needle, it gets very noisy and confusing for people that want to start a business. So we have a consolidated calendar where we list everything that is taking place across the region so that you know where to best serve your time and get the best bang for your buck. We also have a resource listing, and we are essentially a media outlet for the celebrations that are taking place. So if your company has a press release, send it to us. We'll push it out. We have a really growing audience that we can continue to share the word and celebrate entrepreneurship across Hampton roads. And you can find us at startwheel.org.
Wonderful. Any other questions that you guys have? Tim, is there anything else you want to ask Erica?
I can't think of another top 3 list, so no. I do appreciate the time.
The top 3 best hairstyles of Zack Miller in 2020. The long bangs of the Backstreet Boys from the 1990s is the current look because I can't go to the barbershop.
Struggle is real.
The struggle is real. I saw someone on Facebook post something that was so funny. This is so ridiculous. They were like, "You're gonna really figure out what people's hair color is soon."
Yeah, if I looked down for you, you would see some silver glitter up there right now.
Silver glitter. Is glitter a color?
I'm going
now.
It is now.
Yeah.
No, I just want to thank you guys for your time, and you've been supporters from day one in various ways. And Cartwheel did a great job of sharing out our press release, which was exciting. We laughed as a remote company. Our press release had like 3 locations, which is abnormal, but we're like, hey, we are who we are.
What were those locations? Hawaii, Yorktown, and where?
Baltimore, where our lead investor is.
Got it.
Yep. Just thank you for the time and the opportunity to chat. It really means a lot.
How many ads do you guys think you see each and every day? Pick a number.
Ads?
Yeah, like advertisements.
On Facebook?
General. In a daily day, how many ads do you think you see a day?
I would say 40 between, right now, Facebook and TV is probably the only 2, right? I'm not out driving around, so I'll go with 40.
Tim, you might know the number.
I would guess around 5,000.
Great.
Ooh.
So the answer is 5,000. This is a real number. So we see 5,000. Yes. Seriously.
Zack has 4,000 just behind him.
Hey, I've worn that belt before.
You have worn that belt. The championship belt. For those of you that aren't watching, this is ridiculous. So we as consumers consume 5,000 ads each and every day. The last time I was able to actually find that from a data point was in 2013, so that number could be a lot higher now. So that's including watching this, seeing a bunch of, thumbnails on a Netflix, the things that you normally see in a car, your normal advertisements, commercials, etc. My point being is that many of us focus on competing against our direct competitors across the street when we actually need to make sure that we get people's time. So we're competing against 4,999 others each and every day. We're very appreciative for you guys consuming this information from us before. And if you guys want to learn how you can stand out and be one of those ones instead of the 4,999 others, you can check me out at Zack Miller Says everywhere on the internet. Or if you want to attend this amazing webinar next Monday, go to zackmillersays.com/webs, WEBZ, and you can get all the goodies there. And that's all I got. How was my pitch? Was it okay? You like how I pulled you guys in? You guys didn't even realize there was a commercial coming on?
There's some psychology happening there. That was good.
Tim's like, it's like a 4.2 out of 10. I get it. It's cool. Appreciate you guys listening. And we're going to do more of these. If you guys want to be interviewed by us, if you guys want us to showcase you, hit us up in the DMs or in the comments here. Please go check out Instant Teams. Please check out Startwheel. And if you like middle-aged men with long hair like a Backstreet Boy, you guys can check me out at Zack Miller Says everywhere. Until next time, I'm Zack Miller, and there's Tim, and somewhere over there is Erica. Appreciate y'all's time. Laters.
See everybody.